Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Local Film Talk. We're here talking to people in the North Carolina area about the local film scene. Today we're talking makeup effects, mostly for horror movies, I think, although makeup is utilized in pretty much any kind of movie out there. But we're here to talk about the really fun stuff, the gore, the blisters, the gashes, the zombies, all that stuff. And right now we've got two masters at the craft right here. We have Will Stine. Thanks for being on the show, Will.
Thank you very much.
Will, many of you will remember, was on, what was it, 2 months ago? Maybe 3 months ago?
In July.
July,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, middle of the summer. So, yeah, you were broadcasting to us from your workshop, which it appears you are again tonight. I bet it's not nearly as hot in there as it was back in July, is it?
No, it's actually a little more chilly now.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. I see you're doing the iPhone thing again. It's always interesting for me to see people doing a more mobile setup, just to kind of get to know the different ways people can get on the show. That's really cool. But, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us.
No problem.
And our other guest right now is Mike Jones. You probably know him as Dedman from Horror Society and a slew of other websites. Thank you for joining us, Mike.
Oh, no problem, man. It's always good to be on.
So, like I said, I mentioned Horror Society, but that's, really one of maybe 5 or 6 different publications you work for. So tell us a little bit, go ahead and give us the laundry list of publications you work for, and, you also do a couple podcasts. Tell us all the stuff you got your fingers in.
Yeah, I got my start about 6 years ago, really, when it comes to the writing end of it. Of course, there's HorrorSociety.com, which is owned by Mitchell Wells. It's nice writing for them. He pretty much gives me free reign to cover any topic, any film, anything like that I want to dig into.
That's pretty cool.
From there, it led to several magazines. Currently, I'm writing for Deanna Utella's Living Dead magazine that's based out of Oregon, and that's a really nice, new, independent magazine. It kind of reminds me of the early days of magazines like Fangoria, where it really delves more into the independent stuff. We certainly cover mainstream horror, but it's a lot more of the independent scene and what's going on there.
Right.
I've also recently started writing for Gore Noir magazine. It's kind of a little bit more of a niche magazine, but again, it's a really informative, fun magazine to write for. I've also write for an English e-magazine that's also available for print called Digital Dead Magazine. And what's cool about them is it's strictly a magazine on zombies, zombie culture, films, actors, actresses, music, you name it, zombie, that's what they cover. So I have a lot of fun writing for them as well. And then 2 years ago, I was talking with Mitch at Horror Society, and I was like, we need to bring back the podcast because I feel like it's something it's popular, but it's something that the major sites weren't doing anymore. So we relaunched.
Really, a lot of them let it lag?
It seemed like it. I mean, for a while, Fangoria was on like Sirius XM radio.
Oh, wow.
Debbie Rochon and Dee Snider were running that, and then it just kind of went away. And, you look at your major horror sites out there, you've got your Fangorias, you got your Rue Morgues, you got your Dread Centrals and stuff like that. But nobody was really doing any podcast stuff. So we revived Horror Society Radio, and I have my own show on Tuesday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time called the Calling Hours Horror Podcast. And I got real lucky. I've got Metal Blade Records sends music for the show, Screen Factory, and a bunch of other assorted DVD companies send reviews. And then what I do is I have guests on for an hour and do interviews. I mean, I've had Debbie Rochon on the show. I've had Herschel Gordon Lewis on my show. I've had Tyler Main on my show. So, I mean, it's becoming more and more popular, and we started to expand it. So we also have Chris McGibbon, who does Creep Show Radio on Wednesday nights.
Okay.
And then we have Flesh Wound Radio, which is usually on Thursday nights with Todd Loya and Daniel Shine. And then once a month, we're going to start doing a show called Grave Discussions, where we have people on in different facets of the industry, and we just talk about different hot topics in the genre as it is now. So that pretty much consumes the majority of my time these days.
That's a lot of shows. You guys really have a lot going on the broadcasting end.
Yeah, but I think it's nice because we all have a different element. We all bring a different style to our shows. So we have a show I think that will appeal to a broad base of appetites depending on what you like in the genre.
Okay, and these are all on Horror Society?
Yes, it's all through Blog Talk Radio. We're also available through what is it called, Stitcher, and through iTunes. So if you want to listen to the show live, you can do it. If you want to download it, it's available that way as well.
Nice. Now that's all the general horror stuff and genre and movies and everything, but you also do some effects work, and in fact, you and Will have worked together in the past. What are some of the projects you guys have worked on? Let's go Will first.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember around 2006, I worked on a scene for a movie called The Forever Dead that Bill Mulligan was also a makeup effects artist for, and Christina Aldridge was the director. And I came down there and I talked with Mike and also with Bill about makeup effects, and during that day was a big zombie effects scene where a lot of zombies are charging the highway, and so we all did like little makeup effects here and there. Mike did a lot of, and Bill did a lot of little practical effects, like one person getting their head blown off, and one person get their arm pulled off, and I mainly was there helping with like making like more zombies effects.
Mm-hmm.
And a second called Grinder,
Mm-hmm.
where it was more of a old school torture porn type film where this girl and guy would get trapped in a house, and this girl gets her face bitten off, and ends up they end up in the house is like full of like redneck inbred type guys.
Okay. That sounds kind of intense.
Yeah.
It was fun. I thought the location that they had for Grinder was really amazing. I enjoyed the house that we shot in front of for that. I can't wait to actually see it. It's been all these years, and we put all that work. I still have all the pictures from it, but looking forward to actually seeing the completed project. It was a lot of fun working with William on that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And of course, Bill, we should take the time to mention we were hoping to have Bill Mulligan on the show as well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Bill had oral surgery earlier today, and even though he was planning on being on the show, he doesn't seem to have been able to make it. And I don't blame him because, after oral surgery, I know I would be hopped up on pain pills, and I hope he is too and sleeping soundly on his couch. So,
Yeah.
if Bill is listening to this, we're missing you, and we hope you feel better soon, but we will try to carry on without you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bill's, I'm glad you brought Bill's name up. Bill, I met Bill on Forever Dead, which was the first film I ever worked on, and, that's a guy I wish more people would do shows like with what you're doing. Bill's a high school science teacher, and he takes all of the knowledge that he has and he applies it to the horror genre makeup effects style. It's to watch him make some of the stuff that he makes, it's truly amazing. See, that's where your tax dollars should be going, people. People like
Yeah.
Bill who take that knowledge and it's like watching Mr. Wizard do a show. There's no other way to put it. That's a good way to describe Bill and how he does his stuff.
That is a great way to describe Bill.
Yeah, I worked with him before on a movie called Forbidden Woods, and the director said, there's 2 more makeup people come by. He's okay? I was like, that's fine, I'm working with more people. And I said, and I saw him walk up, and it's like, I know you! And it's like, oh, good. You know each other, and that makes everything better. And then one person gets impaled by a big piece of wood that's sticking out of the ground, and so he's making a mid torso using chicken wire, and it's like, wow, make chicken wire. Yeah.
Wow.
So you see him like fixing it together, doing this and that, and like wow, he's like really quick on this stuff.
Mm-hmm. And he's also a pretty talented writer too. If you ever seen any of a lot of Christine Parker's films, he's written a couple of those. Obviously, does a lot of the effects for them. Does a little acting too. He's a pretty good actor.
Yeah, he is.
If anybody has a chance to see 400 Ways to Kill a Vampire, I think that's my favorite of theirs. And that is a great combination of all his skills. I think especially his writing in that one is really fantastic. Have you guys seen that one?
No, I have not seen that one yet.
So it's a little short. I saw a screening in Durham about this time last year. 400 Ways to Kill a Vampire.
I'll look into that
check
one.
it out. Actually, the first time I met Bill in person was probably the beginning of October last year. He was doing the creature effects on Christopher G. Moore's latest movie, Knobgoblins.
Yeah.
Which, if you guys are on Facebook right now, he's finally gotten it into a few festivals. It just started screening a couple weeks ago. But Christopher posts a lot when he goes to these festivals. He takes the creature with him, and it's just this little monster that Bill built, and it looks amazing. Even in the photos, in the bright light, when you think it would look hacky and cheap and everything, it still looks good. He does really quality work. And I remember when I was there on set watching him shoot, I spent like half a day just listening to him talk about how he put this thing together, and it's amazing.
It's a shame that he's not on, because there were two things with Bill that were really funny. I worked with him on a film in Greensboro called Z13, The Zombie Within, that was done by Voltron Jones and Blake Fawcett of All Aces Media. And that shoot was a lot of fun because, like William said, he's very quick when he does effects. So that was one of those shoots where, like, Bill and I were trying to one-up one another. Who can do the goriest zombie the quickest? But then he also worked with me on a film called The Evil Woods that we shot in Waxhaw outside of Charlotte that was directed by Aaron Harvey. And Lionsgate had actually picked that one up. But I'll never forget the night that I had him come out. I called him up last minute. Bill, can you come out and help? He comes out. We're doing this scene where someone gets their head chopped off. And I'm a larger framed gentleman. Bill is a much more compact guy than I am. And Bill, laid down on the cold wood, in the woods, and we've got this blood. And there's a $90,000 Range Rover in the shot. And when the axe comes down, Bill's supposed to spray the blood.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we did this thing with an air compressor, and Bill just winds up covering on the first shot the $90,000 Range Rover, all the lights on set, the high-end digital cameras, and everything. It's a great little scene in the film. But like William said, if you want a guy who can do things on the fly quickly and just has an amazing mind, Bill is definitely your guy.
Yeah.
And he will make that blood splatter good.
Oh, yeah.
And
I remember he got mad at me. Yeah, I wouldn't say so much mad at me, but I definitely remember a scene on the set of Forever Dead. He's gouging the eyes out of a zombie, and Christine's sitting there with the camera, and I'm pouring the blood. And keep in mind, it's like 30 degrees outside, middle of the winter.
It always is when you're shooting a horror movie, isn't it?
And Christine's like, more blood, more blood. So I'm pouring the blood, and I'm telling you, I had to have poured a half a gallon of Caro syrup blood on Bill's face. And by the time Christine finally calls cut, Bill is cussing something fierce like you have never heard before. We laughed about it afterwards, but that was a funny moment.
Man, I got to see photos of that.
Oh, I'll send them to you.
Oh, man, that is fantastic.
I remember on the Forbidden Woods where he had a scene where he has a kid get his intestines pulled out by this deranged camp counselor, And while
I
that's
imagine we'll be
happening,
seeing this on ABC Family sometime soon.
oh
We
yeah,
have
oh
hope.
yeah. And he said, this girl over here gets her eyes gouged out. Can you take care of that? And so I had like two syringes on the guy's thumbs while he's doing mimicking his thumb going to the girl's eyes, and like and blood's pouring out, and it gets to the point to where blood's covering her eyes, and there's like cotton all around her eyeball, her eyelids, and all this gory stuff. And it's like, come on, man, go, 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 come on, get more blood in there. It's like I'm all out of blood, and I don't want her to. And it's like, okay, cut. Okay, don't open your eyes. Don't open your eyes. Clean it off.
Yeah.
And she was a trooper about it. And then a couple months later, when we saw the premiere at the Cape Fear Independent Film Festival, she worked with another guy on another film. And it's like, oh, you worked with that girl too? I said, oh yeah. What did you think of her? I said, oh, she was a great actress. She pulled out her heart and soul for the scene for our film, and she was a very good actress. So how'd you do? Yeah, she had her eyes out. Didn't open her eyes. That's good.
Yeah, she didn't blind herself in the scene, so that's a good start.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how you guys got into, obviously you guys both have a real passion for makeup effects. That's what you do, Will, and Mike, you do some on the side. You were telling me earlier you were hoping to get a little more into that.
Yeah.
What's some of the, how did you develop a passion for, makeup effects?
For me, I mean, I'm 39 years old. I grew up in the heyday of the late 70s, early 80s horror films, and it just always fascinated me. Those were the days when the stars of horror films were not your actors, were not your directors. They were your special effects artists. They were your guys like your Screaming Mad Georges, your Rick Bakers, your Gianetto de Rossi's, people like that who were really influential for many people who do it these days. I was just in the right place at the right time. I went to something called the Frightmare Haunted House, and the guy who ran it told me that a friend of his was making a zombie movie in Sanford. And I had never thought that I would get the opportunity to work on a film. So I went out there to cover it just from a media aspect, and they were doing a 24-hour shoot that night, and they needed help doing makeup. So I brought my kit, helped them out, got my story, and I thought, well, that's the end of it. Well, one of their makeup guys quit, and the next day Christine called me back and asked if I would help complete the film, and it just went from there. I never went to school for makeup effects. I'm all self-taught. It's just been what I've learned over the years. But it was just the right place at the right time. And I'm very happy that my first project was with a guy like Bill, who taught me so much outside of what they would teach you in film school.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Will, you've said something similar about the fact that a lot of this kind of stuff is, there are, you can go to film school and learn a lot of this stuff, or even, I suppose, to some degree, some cosmetology programs might have a little bit of this stuff. But the vast majority of learning this stuff, especially some of the really crazy effects, all comes from, reading about it in stuff like Fangoria magazine, or, actually being lucky enough to get on set and work with other people who are sharing this knowledge. Is that how you? I forget exactly how you said your story went. I think you did actually take some schooling for it, but Will, you also learned a lot on set too, right?
Yes. Most of my effects I learned was through film school. A lot of the effects, like heavy effect stuff, I learned on the side where I watched videos online and practice in my house. And also, I learned a lot of making molds of heads and body parts on a lot of films, especially when they have a big budget and being able to afford making molds. And they say, "Hey, show me. I'll show you how to make a mold of a person's head."
Mm-hmm.
And wow, this is stuff I can actually learn now and not have to worry about paying oodles of dollars in a film school.
Right. You know, I was always thinking, this just kind of popped into my head because you mentioned that, and actually being able to have access to a bunch of this stuff to try some bigger things, and I was reminded of the fact that earlier this week they announced that MythBusters is going to go off the air after this coming season, and I just always remember all throughout the run of that show, the ballistics gel, which, unless I'm mistaken, is pretty expensive stuff. They were constantly making like entire life-size like human forms out of nothing but ballistics gel, and you're like, that one model must have cost tens of thousands of dollars to make. I mean, they could do it because they were, making a TV show and everything,
Yeah.
but it's just the sky's the limit when you have a larger budget like that to be able to use all the crazy materials you want. Am I right?
Oh yeah.
Well, it doesn't hurt, like you said, with it being a bigger show. I'm sure over time, the company was happy to donate that ballistic gel just to get their name out there. But yeah, you're right. In the beginning, things like that are expensive. And what was really cool, the first time I worked with William, when we worked on, Forever Dead and then on Grinder, what's nice too is when you have two independent effects artists working together, we both have different techniques. And I remember specifically on the Grinder, I started doing work with latex for one particular scene, and then William came in and he added his element, and then I took an element of something that Bill had taught me with sorbitol, and at the end it was kind of like the three of us in a way had created our own type of practical effect, and it's still in a style that I use to this day. I'm not so much into the mold making and things like that. I'm definitely more of the hands-on. I'll find the stuff that's all around your house that you would never think about using to do in a makeup effect to pull off a realistic effect.
Right. No, that's good too, and that comes in very handy on those lower budget projects too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
oh, sorry, what were you going to say, Will?
actually, I think a lot of times I've learned to make stuff at home because a lot of times I was like, it also helps pass the time away. Where I'm like, that way when it comes time to set, I'll have the prosthetic ready, and I'll always make sure to have a plan B in case that doesn't go through.
Exactly.
Right. I imagine makeup effects, there's a lot of trial and error, even on set. There's a lot of, all right, here's this worked great in all the test runs and everything. It should work at the time of, but, every now and then it just blows up in your face, and it's like, all right, plan B.
Well, as like I'm sure Will can tell you, the good example is that night on the set of Forever Dead. You're right. You test things way ahead of time, but, you don't think about it being 30 degrees and trying to run Caro syrup through tubing and syringes,
Yeah.
and then finding out that your blood's frozen. Things you just don't even think about.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
The things you learn
Actually-
on set.
And there's one time we were on Forever Dead, we were making some zombies, and one guy was allergic to the gel and started
I wanted
throwing up.
to choke that kid out. I was so mad at that kid.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's like,
God.
"What's wrong? I'm allergic to this thing, and you didn't tell us before."
Oh, no. If you remember correctly, we asked him, and he goes, "No, I'm not allergic to latex." So 50 minutes into doing all of this makeup on this kid, he throws up everywhere. Had a severe allergic reaction to everything.
Yeah.
Oh,
And he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm allergic to latex." And I'm like, "Really, guy?" Oh, I was so mad at that kid. Oh my God.
I was
So-
like, "What do we do here? We'll just paint this thing on as there. There you go. There you go."
So along those lines, I'm thinking it reminded me of something that you mentioned, Mike. I actually heard you talking about when you and I were on the set of the Hell No music video that Twin Maples was directing.
That's right.
You were talking with someone, I forget who, about makeup, different makeup effects, and a lot of what you were talking about came down to the importance of safety. Like you said, being aware, making sure everybody's aware of what their allergies are and that kind of stuff. Knowing what, you're using a lot of different chemicals. You got to know, this thing over here might be fine and this thing over here might be fine, but if the two touch each other, somebody's ending up with a chemical burn and going to the hospital, or it's going to make some kind of toxic gas that everybody's going to inhale and get some kind of poisoning. So talk a little bit about, because that's something, and in fact, let's go ahead and tie this into our questions. I know Conrad, who was actually the director of that music video, sent in one of the questions that we had for you guys, and it was, what can... I gotta look it up real quick. Just a minute.
Conrad's a good dude, by the way. People need to check out his work too.
Conrad is awesome. I love working with that guy. Here we go. Conrad's exact question was, what can filmmakers do to help the FX person be better prepared for the day of the shoot? And in addition to that, of course, what are some things that people need to keep in mind, from like we said, a safety perspective when it comes to dealing with makeup effects? Let's start with you, Michael.
Well, the first thing is if you want to avoid the whole allergy and things like that and I'm sure William would agree, as a director and a producer, give your makeup effects artist one day to do testing on everyone that's going to have makeup done on them. A lot of people may not know whether or not they're allergic to latex, and the latex and the adhesives that are used on Band-Aids are not quite the same concentration as what we use when we use spirit gum, when we use liquid adhesives and things like that. Makeup tests take all of 30 minutes to complete. So if you don't want to have someone have an allergic reaction, just give us that time to test out your cast and your crew. Would you agree, William?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And just to be clear about what a makeup test is, it sounds like you're talking about you just kind of test. I guess it would be the equivalent of just kind of,
exactly what you're doing right there.
You're not doubling the makeup budget by having to do the entire prosthetic work on a person and then let them sit in it for 2 hours and see if they have a reaction. You can find out just by giving them a little swipe, right?
Exactly. And that area that you just showed is the area that we usually test people on. That's considered one of the more sensitive skin areas. And when you do a test like that, at the worst reaction someone will have is that the skin will become irritated and red, and then at that point, don't use that makeup on somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a nice, safe place. It's not like, all right, let's smear this on your throat and see what happens.
Let me get this around your eyes and see if you have an allergic reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of times I'll ask the director, they'll say, we want this certain effect, and I say, is there a storyboard or an actor picture so I can get an idea of what they look for? And so if I can see a storyboard and I say, okay, this is the shot they want for that effect. That way I can figure out what I can hide around this little spot here. Like if it's like a medium shot, I can see if I can go under the waist, put the tube through, or that way they're not doing like, we want to do this shot here. Is this all the shots you want for this angle? That way you can hide what you can hide around and what you can cheat around.
Right.
And William's right about that, and that leads into the second half of Conrad's question is, as a director, you really need to have an open line of communication with your effects artist. A lot of times, and Bill could testify to this too, just because you can write a scene and imagine a scene in your head doesn't mean that it's exactly practical for your effects artist to do the effect.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep in mind budget and things like that. And by being open with your effects artist and listening to your effects artist, doesn't mean you have to agree. But if William and I were to come to you and say, okay, I know you want your shot from here, but like William said, you have to think about things like tubing and blood packs and things like that. Be willing to at least accommodate some of what your effects artist is saying, because otherwise the vision you have as a director is not going to make it onto a film. William and I have worked on a lot of what would be considered micro, low-budget stuff. Yeah, it'd be nice if we had $1 million budget, we could probably give you exactly what it is that you want. but we don't always have that available to us. So yeah, being able to have an open line of communication between the two is very important. Would you agree, William?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Especially, no, go ahead.
Especially when they want to make a fake head, and let's say we don't have enough time to make mold a person's head, and let's say that, and I'll say, can you show a picture of what they look like, and that way I find which face I have that would match that person's head, and then let's say, do you mind if it looks like this face but the hair and the head, and if it's like very a quick shot, sure, that's great. And if they want like an actual like detailed face, I have to ask them, can the person come to my house sometime like this day, and we do a mold of the person's face? That way we can get that done like quickly and make more very detailed of what they want.
Right. Now, it would seem to me, based on what you guys were talking about a second ago about, what kind of shot you're trying to get and, being able to hide tubes and that kind of thing, would I be correct in assuming that if we're talking about some kind of effect happening to an actor, would it make sense that the wider the shot, the more complicated and probably more expensive it's going to be? Because it's harder to hide all the inner workings and the tubes and everything. If I want to have be able to see my actor's entire body, when an arm gets ripped off or something, that's going to be a hell of a lot more complicated to try to hide all the strings and everything than if I just want a close up of the arm coming out of the socket, right?
I would say to me that would be 90% of the time that is correct.
Or does having that closer shot mean you need more detail, and that makes it more difficult and expensive?
Well, that's the other 10%, at least in my opinion. When we did Forever Dead, there was a scene on that road, and I think William was there that day, where we did this big gut-ripping sequence. And it actually paid off more for us to have it in a wide-angle shot, because we were able to hide the prosthetic better on the actor's stomach, so that when the intestine ripping happened, you didn't see the seams in the makeup. But to me, that was a rare exception. For William, I know he's done a few more films where it's been a little bit more complicated than that. But it really just does depend on the effect, and also like William said, storyboarding. The more that the director has the idea, quote unquote, fleshed out for us to look at it, the better we can make that determination.
Right. Well, and I guess that's a good thing, good advice for filmmakers for any department is that nobody wants surprises. The more you know exactly what to expect, be it the lighting guy or the camera guy or the makeup guy, knowing exactly what's going to be expected of you, and not having surprises on the day of, oh, we decided to change the angle, or we're not going to shoot that until tomorrow, we're going to do this other thing instead. Though that does not help anybody do their best work or their most efficient work. So planning.
Yeah.
All day.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about movies that influenced you guys, either stuff that you saw early on that got you interested in doing this, or even just stuff that you hold up as kind of the gold standard that you go back and watch every now and then and go, wow, that's just amazing. Michael, you want to go first?
For me, I remember what really cemented it for me was my dad got me an issue of Fangoria magazine that had the behind-the-scenes effects on Friday the 13th, Part 4. I believe it was issue number 34. And I was just fascinated by seeing the effects pictures of Tom Savini's work. And then, like I said, I feel like I'm fortunate because of my age, I got to see, not in theaters, but with the advent of cable and VHS being a thing, I was lucky that I saw the original Friday the 13th when they came out, Return of the Living Dead, things like that, where the effects artists were really the stars and not so much the actors or the directors. I mean, gold standard movies for me would be things like, of course, any of the early Friday the 13th. Lucio Fulci's Zombie is always going to be one for me. The Beyond. Um, I've gravitated more towards the gore side of things. I think things like the original Guinea Pig series that Unearthed Films has put out would fit in that. Cannibal Holocaust, Cannibal Ferox. I mean, there are just so many different styles. I'm much more of a zombie Italian type fan. But I mean, you can even point to things like the original Toxic Avenger, Critters, which we were joking about before the show even started. Funny little movie, but when you look back at it and you think about when that came out and how old you were, man, you were into that kind of stuff. Poltergeist.
Yeah.
There's some crazy stuff in there, yeah. I remember there were some 80s action movies that I just remember having amazing makeup effects. Both the Terminator movies have some really great stuff. RoboCop, there was some great shit in RoboCop. And some of those Aliens movies, too, had some great stuff. That freaking chest-bursting alien in the first Alien movie is always something I go back and look at.
Definitely.
And a funny thing about the RoboCop was the effects for that was a guy named Rob Bottin, who also did effects for Mission Impossible and Total Recall. And one of my favorite movies they did was The Thing, the remake.
Yes.
Where he made all those practical effects for the chest bursting open, like the dog turning into an alien type monster.
Right. And of course, that's the John Carpenter remake of The Thing, not the remake of The Thing they made. What was it, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Which I actually heard that when they shot that movie, they actually did a lot of practical makeup, puppet effects, and then for whatever reason, the producers went back and said, no, we need to replace this all with computers. So, I haven't seen it myself. I hear it's not a great movie, but at least it could have had some interesting special effects in it rather than some really shitty computer work.
It wasn't. It wasn't the worst movie. I mean, I've seen a couple of things online, and I'll send them to you later on in the week. And I'm sure William has seen them too. There were a lot of practical effects that were cut out of that film, and I just know personally, as an effects artist, I understand that digital has its place in the kind of work that we do. But digital, in my opinion, should only be used as a tool, not a means to an end.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and it's okay to enhance something, but to just completely paint over shit is usually just a waste, especially since uh-oh. Did I freeze up?
No?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. My screen is it looks like it's frozen up, but if you guys can still hear me, I'll keep going and hopefully it'll unfreeze.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay. But I remember, and I don't remember if I was telling you about this, Will, or if it was on another episode. I remember I went back and watched the movie Legend a year or two ago, the Ridley Scott movie where Tim Curry was the devil and Tom Cruise was the main guy.
Yeah.
And I remember there's this one point where he goes into a swamp, and this nasty, like, witch monster, like, drippy, it was some kind of witch monster pops out and starts talking to him. And, I mean, obviously this was the early 80s, and it was clearly a puppet, but I thought that puppet looked more... I mean, that was some of the best puppet work I'd seen in a long time, and it certainly blew the hell out of any computer work I'd ever seen. Yeah. And
actually,
sometimes even if the actual effects themselves, even if the actual puppet itself isn't that great, the fact that it's a physical object existing in physical space, with the actual natural lighting and everything bouncing off of it, sometimes even that just helps it be totally convincing.
And actually, I think you mentioned that before, and I was telling you that the witch character was actually Robert Picardo in all that makeup.
Right, that's right. See, I knew it was you I was talking to.
Well, I mean, you use that example. Look at the original Gremlins. That was all puppet work.
Right, yeah.
And they're talking about remaking Gremlins now and doing everything CG.
Yeah.
Well, look at the original Star
And
Wars
the
trilogy as
second
opposed to the
Gremlins,
prequels.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what you get.
I
So,
remember watching a video for the second Gremlins movie. Even though that had some CGI, most of it was all practical effects, and a lot of more advanced puppets, or a lot of puppets were actually a lot bigger than before, so you have
right.
more detailed work.
Yeah. So yeah, I enjoy that kind of stuff. What movies would you recommend, Will? What movies were influential on you, and which ones do you hold up to a pretty high standard?
Well, my mother raised me up on the Universal monsters and the Hammer horror movie characters like Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always held those up to a high standard. As far as makeup effects wise, again, the remake for The Thing and the remake for The Fly, and also Return of the Living Dead and the Friday the 13th Part 4. And one of my favorite ones was a Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. And not so much the effects in the movie, but on the VHS there was a behind-the-scenes video where it showed how they made the practical effects for all those all those
Right.
movies.
Yeah.
And
No,
you
that's
see, like,
sorry.
so a lot of those I say recommendations for those. You want to do a lot of effects work. You see a lot
Okay.
of their neat stuff.
Yeah, I forgot about the remake of The Fly. That one's pretty intense too. A
And,
lot
I,
of
Yeah.
and, I'll, and I'll throw one more in that's more modern day that I think a lot of people overlook, and of course it'll bring up the name of Gianetto de Rossi again. Um, Alexandra Aja's High Tension is a movie that I think gets overlooked a lot.
Okay.
Was that the French movie?
Yes, it was.
Yes, yes, I love that one.
That was originally supposed to be the first NC-17 rated horror movie released in the United States, but thanks to a little film called Showgirls, everyone got up in arms thinking that NC-17 meant nudity, so it got cut down by less than 30 seconds to give it an R rating.
Oh,
Yeah.
what did they cut
That's
out?
one of those movies that I think is vastly underrated and people should look at again. They get their panties in a twist because, I don't like the twist. Watch the intricate storytelling. Watch the amazing special effects in that film. You talk about behind the scenes. The Blu-ray edition that Lionsgate released of that film does a behind the scenes with the Rossi talking about the effects. And you'll be sitting there stunned for hours after you watch it going, I still can't believe that was all practical effects work, not digital effects work.
Okay. That was another one that I'd heard a lot about, but never actually checked out for myself. Do you know if that one's on like on Netflix or something, or is that just go out and find it?
I doubt that it's on Netflix. You might be
Yeah.
able to find it on Amazon. What was it, Amazon Prime?
Right.
On Prime, and I think you can find. I think it comes on Chiller a couple of times, and
That's going to be the butchered edition of the film. It's not.
yeah, well,
It's not an expensive
Yeah.
Blu-ray. I think you can probably pick it up for about $9.
Oh, okay.
So it would.
You said they cut out less than 30 minutes of stuff for an R rating. What did they
30
cut?
seconds of stuff. It was just a little bit of extra blood and what they called lingering camera shots.
Hmm.
yeah, I think there's one scene where this guy gets his head pushed through a staircase banister, and the guy
Yes.
walks over and grabs this like big cabinet, starts pushing it forward, and you see the head just pop off from the cabinet.
Yeah,
And
that's
fill up-
one of them. And then the scene where the mother gets her throat cut. One of the most amazing slit throat sequences I've ever seen in a film. And they cut away a couple of seconds of that because, if you think about it from a physical standpoint, if you cut someone's throat in their windpipe, there's going to be gurgling and bubbling.
Hmm.
And that was one of the things that they cut away from in that particular scene.
Right. No, I can see that would freak some people out.
It's a horror film. That's what it's supposed to do.
Exactly.
One of my favorite modern horror movies is Slither.
Yeah,
Where
that
this-
was a fun one.
That's a good one too. Yeah.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that was also directed by James Gunn, who did Guardians of the Galaxy and it also has the cool Nathan Fillion as the sheriff.
Right, right. That was a fun movie. I like that one. And Michael Rooker was the monster, I guess you'd call it.
He's like, baby, come on, you gotta take me back, baby.
So we got one more question here on the Facebook page. My friend Flip asked what some of the biggest logistical or unforeseen hurdles are to overcome in the process of bringing an idea to life. I think we touched a little bit on that earlier, and also, part of what you were saying about, making sure, advice for directors and making sure that everybody's on the same page and there are no surprises. Another example I would say of an unforeseen hurdle would be your Caro syrup blood getting frozen in the pipes when it's 30 degrees outside. But what are some other examples of surprises you've run into on set that you would if somebody said, "Hey man, what's one thing I need to one bit of advice you would say that you learned on set to save me a big headache?"
Bring bug spray everywhere. I don't care what time of the year it is, especially when you're using a Caro syrup based blood. Ants, mosquitoes, wasps, bees, they all love it.
Good call. Good call. Will?
Make sure that the actor knows exactly what's happening, and especially make sure there's no kids around or like people making loud noises, especially when it's like a very intense, like I was doing a throat slit scene with using a straight razor, and one kid was like going, "What's going on? What are they doing to my mommy?" It's like, get the kid out of here, get the kid out of here.
And you didn't realize you were filming across the street from an elementary school during recess.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, being aware of your surroundings is probably a big one when you're, exploding people's heads and slitting their throats.
And William brings up William's point is really good too. Not only should you inform your actors exactly what's going on, but don't surprise your effects crew either. I worked on a film where there was a child who was going to be killed, and it was off screen, and I was fine with that because I was the killer dragging her off the screen. But at the last second, they came up with this idea that they wanted me to do a little bit more, rough the kid up, and that's as far as I'll go with what they wanted out of that. And I kind of told them, I said, I know that what we do can be graphic and things like that, but that's not the kind of thing you spring on an actor, an effects artist, or anyone else. You
Right.
got to be upfront with your crew when you're going to do stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. The makeup guys have to prepare their effects. The actor has to be prepared mentally for what they got to do, and and the little girl too. It's like, all right, now you just lie still while this guy does all this other stuff we didn't agree to ahead of time. That's just bad form.
Yeah, I'm not a small dude. I'm 6'2". This little girl was all of 4 feet tall, and all of a sudden it goes from I'm dragging you across the ground to I'm going to rough you up. For a young girl, that's kind of a frightening thing to think about, whether it's fake or not.
And that's also the kind of thing to keep in mind, with stunts. You definitely never want any kind of, effects and stunts. Safety is the most important thing, and you don't want to spring something on people that really needs to be rehearsed. Otherwise, it gets dangerous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, no, it's good advice.
Thankful a lot of times I've worked with a guy named Jack Harrison who does lots of stunt work, and he'll make sure everybody's prepared for the stunts involving the makeup effects.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, okay, everybody's all set, good to go.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me. We're coming up on approaching the 1 hour mark, so I'll go ahead and I won't tie you up too much longer. But before we go, is there anything else you wanted to plug, and what kind of stuff are you working on right now? Will, I know you're actually working on I was going to say haunted house in Winston-Salem, but it's actually a haunted forest. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm working on a haunted attraction called Wicked Whimsies, is basically Grimm's fairy tales with a gothic twist.
Okay.
And we're having an interesting night on Tuesday, and then we're open on Friday and Saturday, and Saturday being Halloween. So
Okay.
be sure to come out that. It's in Winston-Salem near Pofftown. If you go to my website, bloodybeautymfx.com, I have more information about about the haunted house. And if you go to wickedwhimsies.com, you'll find more information about the haunted attraction. And as far as films going along, I've got one coming up where I'm making a fairy type monster, and that's about it right now. I'm just auditioning, sending out resumes here and there for upcoming productions, and again, you never know what's gonna happen.
Right. Okay, cool. And Mike, what are you working on right now, aside from your mini podcasts?
Well, one of the things I've looked at doing for Horror Society and Living Dead magazine is doing a few more photo shoots. I want to get into doing that kind of stuff again. I'm definitely going to be doing more videos for YouTube and Horror Society. The thought is, Horror Society, we cover all kinds of different mediums, and one of the things that I really wanted to start doing is, I don't want to say our own television station, but with the popularity of things like Hulu and things like that, it's getting easier and easier to have your own quote-unquote TV station. So I think that's the next step I'm looking at for Horror Society. Maybe if things break right here in the next year or two, maybe William, Bill, and I can get together and work on something, put together our own shorts, something like that. I'm itching to start cutting people up on screen again because you don't go to jail for that.
Right. Cool.
I've actually got a script I'm working on where it's involving. It takes place in high school, but the main characters are this one girl's a vampire, one girl's a werewolf, one girl's a Frankenstein type monster, and one girl's a witch, and they're all being drugged by this girl saying who wants some friends in high school. So she drags them into the high school to make them more popular, and they're trying to figure out how to deal with this new world of high school drama.
Okay. Cool. Well, it sounds like you guys are both staying pretty busy. I'm really excited about this idea of just a horror-focused TV station online. That sounds pretty cool, and especially since that's kind of the idea of what I'm trying to work towards with Triangle Life TV. We'll have to swap some notes on how you actually get that done, Michael. That sounds fascinating.
It's something that's in a developmental process, but there's a great guy who was a horror host here in Raleigh called Orman Grimsby. If you're not familiar with him,
I've heard that name before, yeah.
Yeah, look into that guy. I've been talking to Orman a lot recently, and hopefully we can put something together and get all of us involved. I think overall as a community, we all need to stick together. There aren't a lot of us that do what we do in this area.
Right.
And I do think that we need to network, and we need to do more together. You have great people like Conrad, who puts together the film groups and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We need to see more stuff like that where we can all get together and just hash out ideas. And there's no reason why we all shouldn't be working together on stuff like this.
Right. As if there's one theme that I've gotten from talking to you guys, it's that working together. The sum is always greater than the parts. It sounds like the movies where they managed to get Mike and Will and Bill all together on the effects team. It sounds like some amazing work was done. So collaboration is definitely a big part of any community, and I would like to see a lot more of that around here, and I'm happy to do what I can to get people working together.
Definitely.
Agreed.
So, well, thank you guys, both of you, for taking the time to talk to me. Michael Jones and Will Stine. Both have been very generous with their time. Both have lots of awesome stuff in the pipeline, so make sure you check them out. I, of course, Bob Walters. You can follow me on Twitter at Paradise_Bob. You can follow Local Film Talk at Local Film Talk on Twitter. And, of course, you can check out our page on Triangle Life TV. And as always, there's the main thing is the YouTube channel, of course. Go to the YouTube channel, see all our old episodes, subscribe so you can get the new ones when they come out. And, of course, the podcast is available, too. You can find the RSS feed on Trying to Life TV and subscribe and get new episodes as soon as they come out. So thank you both, Mike and Will, for coming on. If you're up for it, if you want to go ahead and make a big circle in your calendars, I would love to have you guys on again next October to talk some more horror stuff. Hopefully,
anytime you
with
want
Bill
us
that
on,
time.
man.
Yeah.
And if I could, I would like to throw out there, for all the horror fans, make sure to check us out on horrorsociety.com. This will be up. This video will be up as soon as you give me the permission to put it up.
Mm-hmm.
You can always check me out on Tuesday nights, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Calling Hours Horror Podcast on Horror Society Radio. Right,
absolutely. And if anybody happens to be in the Winston-Salem area and wants a good scare, head over to what was the haunted experience called again? Wicked Whimsy?
Wicked Whimsies.
Head over to the Wicked Whimsies Haunted Forest that Will is putting on. Make sure you pack a spare pair of pants and go check that out, because you were saying that you had nearly 200 people go through the other night, which is pretty impressive for an attraction like that.
Yes.
So it sounds like a cool thing, and we want to get as many people going to these as possible because we want to keep them going.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for coming on the show. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and I hope to have you on again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on.